Okay, we are going to call to order the PRCAC meeting for May 16th at 7 p.m. First item is adoption of agenda. Brian has a couple amendments he'd like to make.
I'd like to make the motion that we amend our agenda for this evening via some additions to the correspondence, which I'll mention had to do with communication with the county, both the planning and the public works departments. I would also like to, under old business, do an update on the drainage. It's already on our agenda, but there's a comprehensive plan update that went to the planning commission. Would like to note the septic training that happened. There is an update on the information from the parks, the county on the small boat launch. And then there's also, and finally, an update on the economic strategy that Port of Bellingham.
I'll second that motion for the adoption of the amended agenda with all those plethora of items.
Thank you.
A lot of updates.
Yes.
All right.
All in favor of amending the agenda to include all the updates?
Aye.
Okay, next we have approval of the April 2024 draft minutes.
So moved.
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes.
Wow.
Okay, so most of my correspondence are going to be in updates, but you, Brian, did you have one that just falls under correspondence?
That's a fair question. Why, actually, I don't. They're just,
Okay.
they're the ones that I mentioned.
Perfect.
I feel like another tennis man.
Okay, so we have our first public comment. Is there anyone who has something for the first public comment? Questions, concerns? Bennett?
I might as well go. Yeah, I know you're talking about it this evening. I heard from, what's his name, Elliot, Bennett Knox, and from, who's the other one? Elliot, Smith from, Bennett Knox from Parks. And
Yeah.
Elliot Smith from the
Port of
Port of
Bellingham.
Bellingham.
Okay.
And, I know they're gonna, one of the things they mentioned to you talk about later is they mentioned about the grants, but I tried to light a fire underneath them because the first RCO grant to get a boat ramp, it's due, the first comprehensive plans are due September 3rd. And if they don't act on that, then the next time those grants come available are 2 years down.
2 years.
So I wrote both of them today about that. They both got back to me. They're talking with each other in the marina. And I just tried to remind them that you have to get the grant in now, you know, on these dates, or you're gonna be throwing a lot of money away, basically, so.
The grant is for the actual.
Boat ramp, an actual boat ramp.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking. It's for the boat ramp. It's not
up to $1 million, up to $1 million
for the boat ramp.
for a boat ramp.
Okay, that includes all the planning and all that other stuff.
They'd have to include that in.
Okay, all right.
But that's if they go for it. They have to negotiate that.
Yeah,
The marina.
got it. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to broadband updates. So Prakash, I'll let you take the lead on that and then introduce our visitors here from Port of Bellingham, Port of Bellingham, PUD and Would Be Tell.
Yeah, no, I want to say thanks to both Donna from Would Be Tell and Andrew from the Whatcom PUD for joining us today. I think the last few PRCAC meetings I've been, asking for updates from them and presenting here at the meeting. So I thought, it might be better to hear directly from them, especially since, whether there is progress or we are blocked on something. I think it's good to get everybody on the same page, especially with the PUD being here, not only to speak about their project, your project, Andrew, with the WSPO grant, but also just to hear also how the other broadband efforts are going. And if you have any advice or thoughts on the way forward for Point Roberts as a whole. So with that, why don't I hand it off to you, Donna, first,
Okay,
for your update, and then after that, Andrew.
that's great.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure. And just so you know, I am now a citizen of Whatcom County. So now I'm really pleased to be much closer to Point Roberts. So you're going to get to see a lot more of me, you lucky things. I know our
Great.
crew in Point Roberts is very excited about it. Just ask them. Um, Anyway, the last time I spoke with you folks directly, I had high hopes that we would have some resolution of the work that needs to be done where we have been doing our construction, and that it was our plan to be back to work by the end of the first quarter of the year. Well, that turns out to be quite optimistic on my part. And the archaeologist that was approved by the USDA, and I got to read this out carefully because I always mess up their name, the Washington State Department of Archaeological and Historical Preservation's approved archaeologist has been on site since the end of January. And all of this work has come down to the fact that the site is much more significant than we originally thought. And so we're going to have to be very thoughtful and very careful on how we progress through that area. So we are continuing to take our role in the process, again, which is federally and state driven, as along in partnership with the Lummi tribe. And we're playing a role in providing the resources to help them sift through and have a safe place to retain and keep the things that they find safe and secure and be of any support that we can. But right now we cannot even speculate how long this is going to take for that particular part of the project to get back to work. So in the meantime, we are researching alternative forms of technology. I'm not the technology expert at the company, but let's just say one of the big plans that we're looking at right now is a way of using the existing copper plant and shortening the loops through a process that's called a mini BLC, which we just happen to have 3 of ready to go. So we're hoping that with that can be, this would not disturb anything. So it's not something that would cause problems with any other cultural sites because it is existing plant. It's just shortening those loops using these mini BLCs. And then there's some other alternatives we're looking at with new technologies that are coming available that we're pretty excited about. And I cannot reveal just yet because they're in the planning phase, but we're very optimistic that we're going to have some solutions and we can get back to work in a different area much more quickly than if we wait just till the end of the archaeological issue to get resolved. Now, 2 of our 3 Point Roberts focused grants are on hold. That's what we're talking about. They're on hold right now. But our 3rd, which is the Middle Mile grant, is still very much in progress, and we're moving up the island, getting ready to launch those submarine cables, which will connect Point Roberts more directly back to the United States without going through Canada. And that is still on schedule, still in progress, and we're pretty pleased about that. So we've got plenty of work to do for our employees up there with these alternative things and maintaining the existing plant. So we're not going anywhere, and we're going to keep you advised of our progress. And like I said, you'll probably see me in the coffee shop in my logo wear. Don't be afraid to come talk to me. And progress is being made. We'll be looking for other grants also to support the improvement in the plant and facilities there in Point Roberts. And of course, those take a while too. So I think, and Andrew may correct me here, but I think the BEAD grants are going to be due up in the fall. So that's when you'll hear more about those.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thanks, Donna. Just a couple of quick clarifications there. You mentioned like you're exploring other alternatives. Like, when do you expect to make a decision, and when can you share something with the community about what is the way forward?
Well, right now, we're doing our research into some of the, everybody's got the best solution, and we have to make sure that not only the technology works in the environment that Point Roberts has, which has to do with the salt water, with the winds, all of those things that might affect any technology that we wanted to bring in. We want to make sure that anything we do is going to be have that high level of reliability that you folks expect from Whidbey Telecom, but also that it pencils out financially. So those are the things we have to consider. We are doing some in-depth research in the next couple of weeks. We'll probably have our plans pretty much ready to go public within 90 days, I would say.
Okay. And then the other question I had was, you mentioned using the existing copper plant. Like, what does that look like? Like, what kind of speeds does it support?
Okay,
Is it already being used somewhere on the point, or?
it hasn't, we purchased these to be used in a couple of different areas that we're going to that we thought we could do instead of increasing speeds through fiber. It's still a copper plant, but it increases the speeds by shortening the loops. Now you're going to ask me some trick questions, aren't you, about this? I'm
I'm just trying to understand.
I'm just the puppet saying, repeating words I've heard.
I wonder if it's.
It's my understanding that by using the existing copper plant, we can shorten the loops using these, and they're like a large cabinet that you would see. You see our PEDs all over the place, but it would be a larger than a PED, smaller than one of the big cabinets. And in there, it allows us to get the power and shorten the loop of the copper, which increases the speed. And we can get up to 100/20 with that.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Oh, is that the magic number you were looking for?
Well,
Okay,
just
sorry,
to know
I
then, like,
took you that long way around.
you know, some places on the point right now are like as low as 25 megabits down.
I have
right?
10.
10, there we go.
Right.
So,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
it's copper's a challenge, but it is a reliable source, and it's something that we can do by shortening those loop lengths. And we're looking to see the viability in which neighborhoods those would be most useful. We want to go where the copper doesn't have to be modified too much, because we don't want to get into the digging business until we have a plan with the tribe and the state.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I'm happy to hear that, just because I know the extent of archaeology in Point Roberts, because I have to work with the archaeologists all the time. And the amount of Point Roberts that actually is archaeological is astonishing.
Highly
So,
significant, yes, highly
You
significant.
know, I actually had offered to work with one of the gentlemen there at Whidbey, that I would actually drive him around, because I actually know where the lines are. I know where all of the archaeological lines are, to say from, ordinary high water mark all the way to this spot, you're archaeological, because I also know where the buffers are from individual sites to assist so that you don't run into something like this again, where you're held up, because we all know archaeological is very, 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 very expensive. And I don't think I put enough varies in there to explain how expensive it is, and finding, so I'm happy that you're looking at alternatives to digging.
others with questions or comments? Just to clarify, Donna, if there's no other questions, like, I'm glad to hear that there are alternatives being considered. But the copper sounds to me like, with the numbers you mentioned, 100 down, 20 up. Are you thinking of that as an interim solution while we figure out the fiber in the longer
Our
term?
goal is to get everybody on fiber. That is the wave of the future. That's the place to be. And then you can get true speeds, gigabit up and down, all kinds of reliability, and it's always going to beat copper.
Yep.
It just is. And so the mini BLCs is a way to make the best of the existing plant, get the higher speeds now, with the idea that we would replace with fiber.
Yeah, just to recap there, like, when we first started on this journey with broadband and PRCAC involvement, we looked at the Washington State goals, speed goals. If I recall correctly, I think it said by 2028, Washington State has a goal of 150 megabits up and down for all residents and businesses in the state. So I think that's still our kind of our guiding light of at least that. Obviously, fiber would provide a lot more, hopefully. But I would hope that we can get to at least that, you know, in
Right.
some
Yeah.
reasonable time frame.
Well, when you see all the, what do they call it, the Internet of Things and the need for speed for Wi-Fi, driving Wi-Fi in people's homes and businesses, I think the state's going to be too slow. I think we're going to be out on
Yeah.
beyond them.
Yeah.
But
Just
Point Roberts is far from that goal today, so I'm hoping we can
That's
at least
right,
get there.
right.
Yeah.
So, and there's also the point of pride, you know, I got gig speed at my house. How about you, right?
So I have a question then, Donna, if, you know, you say fiber is the end goal, are you looking to alternatives to buried fiber?
Yeah, we're looking at everything. We're
Okay,
looking at
yeah,
everything.
just because
Because we do
of
not,
the archaeological here,
Right,
buried fiber
yes.
is just not gonna be a possibility.
right. So here's the thing. There's no denying with all the studies that have been done nationwide, worldwide, buried fiber is your best bet for reliability. It just is. And that's what we would prefer to do, is to continue. That's always been the Whidbey brand, is the reliability part. When the wind blows, your internet's still there because we run our generators out there and make sure even the copper lines are up and operating. When you're subject to the wind and the saltwater air and things like that, aerial is a bit of a challenge. But again, there are technological improvements being made every day. So we're looking at everything right now.
Okay.
It's going to be expensive. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
It's going to be expensive. Yeah.
Okay, so, no one has any other questions?
Elizabeth,
I have a question. So what if, this is hypothetical, what if fiber goes in and a homeowner doesn't want it? They're quite happy to be with Whitby. Does that phase out, or what's the scenario, Donna? Do you know?
Well, here's if we get our fiber, our dream end is fiber to everyone, and people want to stay on copper, there will come a day that we can no longer support it. And the reason for that is the manufacturers and the suppliers of those mechanisms that support a copper line are getting fewer and fewer availability. There are some copper components or components of a copper system that we're already looking at the gray market for, because manufacturers are just not going to support copper in the end.
Okay.
But in the end, we'll probably all be on fiber.
Fiber. So right now, Whitby charges about 70 a month. What will fiber be? Do you have any idea?
Boy, I do know that. Well, actually, I don't know that. And the reason for that is right now, I don't know what the costs are going to be. And I am loath to project any pricing based on an unknown cost.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Thanks for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
all right, if no other questions for Donna, Andrew, you want to give us your update on PUD's work? And also any comments you might have on the Whitby situation with the archaeological and other aspects?
Sure. Well, hopefully you can all hear me okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Some familiar faces here. I'm Andrew Entrikin. I'm the director of broadband and power supply for Whatcom Public Utility District. Support a lot of work with our general manager on special projects. Donna, that was a great presentation. Good work as always. I think we're going to be in the same boat here shortly with some of the underground areas that we have, where there's no pole line. We're going to have to go underground, or find some alternative ways to get to the end user connections, maybe by placing new poles or finding a new route if possible. So I can very much foresee a situation where we're going to be lumped into a same predicament as Would-Be Tell is today. It's just a matter of time. But I do have some visuals I'd like to go through to walk everyone through where we are in the process today. And I hope that can kind of help orient everyone with where we are and what's to come.
Let me get in here so that you can share. Come on,
There it is.
there we go.
Perfect. Good.
Okay, so this is the, if you just Google Whatcom PUD, you'll find our homepage here, pudwhatcom.org. I'll direct you to where this project management resource is just what I'm calling it. You can find under services, you go to broadband program. And then right here at the very top, we just added this to our website, and our website's a little outdated, so forgive us, but you click here. And this is the landing page, or the idea is that this becomes a landing page for folks to stay abreast on where the PUD is in our progress through this fiber to the premise build. So in the future, we'll have a dashboard that we'll have like the areas that are being constructed in real time, number of end user connections that have a fiber to the house, kind of a thing. So more to come on the dashboard, but I wanted to dive into the project map here. In a minute, I'll show you the original project area, but it's been updated here. If you recall a previous presentation I gave to this group, so if it looks a little bit different, we did update the project boundary. You can click through here and see the proposed aerial and underground routes. And these little purple lines are, for the most part, what are called drops, which is how you get from the road down the, so the drops are the driveway right to the side of the house, so to speak. So we're in engineering today. So we're not in construction right now. We're in design and engineering. So in February, we issued our contract with an outfit called Cobb Fenley and Associates, and they've been really great to work with. We're about 3 weeks out, I'll just say a month to give us some wiggle room, from getting a finalized construction ready design plan set. And that design set, we then go out to bid to find a construction firm to go on and build this. So this is a high, what you're looking at right now on this map is a high level design, very high level. So some of these areas might become underground, some of the underground areas might become overhead. The engineering firm has done all the on-site work, looking at every pole in this entire project area for what's called make ready. So what's work that we need to do on the poles so that we can attach to the poles? Does the pole need to be replaced? If it's multiple poles in a row that just aren't able to be attached, do we need to find a different route or go underground? So they figure out all of that. So in about a month, we'll have this updated. This map will be updated with pretty much a finalized idea of where a construction company would come in and build. But of course, before we get to that point, we'll have some environmental work to do, and archaeological and historic preservation and all that permitting. But this is the map that we'll keep updated as often as possible. And then 0 connected customers today in this particular project, obviously, but we'll have this pie chart updated as we progress. So folks can kind of see, not exactly real time, but hopefully weekly updates on where we are, if not more frequently. So this is the original project area that we presented. But what we found is that since the time of our application, or maybe it was even before, but neither here nor there, what we found after some additional site visits was that there was already some private investment being made in some of these areas by Would-Be Tell. And so we approached Would-Be Tell and just said, hey, the whole goal here is not to get into an area that you're already building. So what we want to do is we want to remove the areas that we see you already have some infrastructure being built, and we want to tell the state who funded this project that, you know, we don't want to take money to serve areas that are already being served by Woodby-Tel. So Woodby-Tel said that, you know, that's totally fine. Yep, take those out. And the state said that's fine, take those out. But then we also found that over here on the east side, this chunk over here was not picked up by our project. So we just asked we asked Woodby-Tel if they would, you know, if they already have plans to serve this area. And at this time there isn't. And so we went to the state and said, can we just change this project area to include this, and we'll take out the areas that Woodby-Tel already has some investment and some infrastructure. So that's why you see this kind of updated polygon area. So this is the new project area. If you continue to scroll down here, you can
Sorry,
see
Andrew, can I ask a quick question? Sorry to
Sure.
interrupt.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand the lighter areas that are, you know, sort of in the middle, in the center.
Sure.
Are those, like, how should I read those? Those are not covered, or is there, what's the situation there?
Yeah,
where you're, yeah, like
in
right
here?
about, right, yeah, and that can, you know, all that same color.
I'd have to look at the specific addresses in these areas, but where the linear routes are is where we intend to build. So like, I know in this chunk right here, for example, there's already Woodby-Tel plant or infrastructure. So we cropped that out. There's some up here that we cropped out, some areas over here that we cropped out. So that's the idea, is we don't want to get close to anywhere that Woodby-Tel already has infrastructure, because the idea is to be an extension of their current infrastructure.
Or maybe if I can ask it another way, like, I don't know if you guys have already done this, but if you put the Woodby-Tel coverage, you know, targeted coverage map, and then superimpose what the PUD is doing, will there still be areas that are not covered by fiber?
That's exactly.
My area,
My road.
the Dogwood area where we have 90% occupancy is not covered by this map, and it's not covered by the Woodby maps. Which
And
is,
my road's not covered by either map either.
I'm covered by both.
And he's covered by both.
He's special.
You're special.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the Woodby-Tel is kind of this, Donna can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think their grant areas are kind of along here and here. But I think there might be just a handful of
Now,
address points.
keep in mind, these maps are never going to be 100% anyway, because the
Right.
grants tell us where we can build. And it's key to everybody understanding that it's not Andrew and it's not me who's out picking and choosing. It's what the speeds are that are available today and what the grant says we can qualify. And so we have to pick those areas that qualify, and some areas they don't, because they either barely make the speed minimum speeds, or for some other reason they are DQ'd. Doesn't mean they won't come in as the speeds rise as a minimum requirement, and that's what we're hoping to see in this next go around, that more areas become eligible when that minimum speed goes up. Did I say that right, Andrew? I kind
Yes,
of
very well said. Yes, I should have just started with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We don't decide. Yeah, it is true. The state sets the notice of funding opportunity or whatever the funding source is, and we have to tailor our grant submissions to their rules. That's absolutely correct.
And with the plan that you have here, Andrew, is it correct to assume that this will exhaust the monies in the WSBO grant?
Yes. I mean, we try to be conservative in our cost estimates when we apply for the grant funding, but so far we've been hitting each of our milestones on par with our design estimates at the time that we applied. So for example, what I mean by that are our design engineering costs. You know, we had a set dollar amount of what we thought an engineer would come back to engineer this, and we had enough funds to cover that. We're starting to get the bill of materials. So, material procurement for this area, we had a dollar amount for what that would cost. We're starting to get those back from the engineering firm, and those are coming in within the area, the ballpark of what we stated in our grant. And then we have a high level construction estimate as well, which is also within our original estimate as well. So things are staying within the budget, which is really nice. But it's a construction project. So
Yeah.
things always come up. And so we put contingencies on top of that to cover. So my goal would be to, of course, come in under, and if we have any dollars left over, we could, potentially approach the state and say, there's these, handful of addresses that are still not served. Can we use those dollars to serve them? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Rather than applying for a whole new grant just to cover, the remaining dots or address points. But if not, we have enough contingency in there. So if things do go wrong in the construction process, we have enough to fulfill the obligations of the grant. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And just so we're clear, this is going to be, obviously, like you talked about, the poles above ground fiber infrastructure. Is that right?
Yes, it's without seeing the finalized engineering plan set, I just loosely say it's probably about 90% overhead.
Your drops are overhead, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And sorry,
seems you have the most archaeological sensitive area in your section. Maple Beach.
yeah.
Yes.
Where you can't even put a shovel in the ground down there. Even septic systems have to be on grade down there now.
Yeah, that
You
area is
can't-
primarily overhead.
Yeah, so anything down in that Maple Beach area, we can't even put sewer line in the ground.
So the
We're having
utility
to lay them
poles,
on ground.
the utility poles though are already there, right? So digging
The
for that's
utility
not a
poles are already
problem.
there, so
Right.
he can run off those poles. That's why I'm saying that's a good place to be overhead, because that's your only choice.
As long as the poles are in
Yeah.
good shape, right, Andrew?
We're right. And yeah, some of them are little,
The good thing about that is that they're PSE poles. PSE actually already has a contract with an archaeologist. And if they need to swap out any pole, the archaeologist just comes for the pole switch. And it's already permitted through DAPA.
Oh, that makes it easy. Yeah, good.
Andrew, not to hijack your presentation, but just one more question here.
no, you're fine.
Given that what we know about the archaeological situation, and you mentioned that you might be in a similar spot with this project as the Whidbey Tell, like, why wouldn't you just instruct the design firm to say no underground infrastructure?
Well, I guess it's a kind of a case by case scenario within the project area. If there's an existing pole line, like we've talked about, we'll use that. If there isn't, like down here, there aren't any poles here. So the idea is to go underground here, but if that's not, if that's an area, culturally sensitive area, then we'd have to look at an alternative way to connect those.
I guess what I'm asking is, like, would you be better off, or would we all be better off, like, just assume all of Point Roberts is just archaeologically sensitive and not try to go underground because we're just going to hit something and then be stalled?
The expense of those poles is going to be something for somebody to put up,
Right.
and that's also going to be a problem. I think that's.
I'm
what
looking at the
saying,
map.
right?
I'm looking at the map and I would say based on this map, about a third, maybe not quite half, is archaeological and the other half is not. Just from what I know. And one of your lines is archaeological, but it actually has been designated by the archaeologist as an area of non-significance. So it's actually easy to do. But there is quite a bit of area here in yours that isn't archaeological.
There are sections that don't have poles too.
Yeah,
A good example is along Roosevelt, there's like a 700-foot section that doesn't have poles.
Wow.
I know,
and we're only archaeological about 2/3 of the way up, a third of the way up, maybe not quite half up Roosevelt, and then we're no longer archaeological up Roosevelt
Hmm.
in your blue area. So,
that's the area that
yeah,
could go underground, but
Well, I mean, I'd love to meet with you offline and talk through
Okay.
this a little bit more before we start spending dollars on a, firm. But that's the next, once we get our finalized plan back, that'll be, what an archaeologist will tell us is you can't go here kind of a thing, and we'll have to adjust, right? But if there's already I am somewhat savvy with GIS and pulling publicly available data sets, but I can't pull those data sets. You have to be, you actually have to be an archaeologist to get those GIS
Yeah,
sets.
only
So I
the
didn't have that
archaeological-
in the
Yeah.
in the planning, which would have been really helpful. I mean, if it's already a known thing, anyway. So
yeah, I'm just lucky because of what my husband's company does, and we have to get DAPA permits all the time.
mhm.
I kind of have figured out where all of these things are. And then, of course, there's always anything that's within 150 feet of ordinary high water is automatic,
Right.
right? But because we've done jobs in other areas, I kind of know where the extra buffers are. So I have no problem helping you with that to make things easier.
Thanks. I'd love to take you up on that. That would be absolutely wonderful. Just
No problem.
I think anyway, but thank you. And there was one more thought I had on that. The typical process, and I might be butchering this, but the typical process is you basically have a high level design like this, and you submit this back up to the state, who then they turn around and submit this to the tribes, and the tribes come back with, here's what you need to do. So one thing that we're trying to do is, rather than just sending this high level design up and starting that process, we're trying to get a lot of this culturally sensitive areas and any adjustments needed and planning done well in advance, so that the state has a package of, here's a culturally sensitive plan that we have to produce. We want to produce that up front, so that the tribes don't have to come back and say, will you please produce this for us? It's like, well, we have this, we've done this. So we're trying to do as much as we can up front to show them that we're doing our due diligence, and it is really important work to be done, and we don't want to disturb these historical areas. So we're trying to do as much up front, rather than kind of the typical norm of, hey, you tell us what we need to do. So that's kind of our approach. It might still waylay the project and prolong our progress, but if it does, it does. It's necessary. Any more questions before I move on to the next kind of chunk of this area? So the planning timeline. So like I talked about, we're just in design and permitting. You can come through here, you can see where we started and the high level route analysis and the dates. And so you'll see this updated as we move into permitting, environmental, culturally sensitive areas, all the permitting. So permitting, in that design that we just looked at, for all the pole attachments, we have to submit each pole into Puget Sound Energy for them to tell us, like I think I mentioned earlier, what work needs to be done on that pole for us to attach. So for every pole in this area, we have to submit that. So that's also part of the permitting phase. So all that will be triggered once we get the finalized design, because then I can take that and start running environmental, I can start running the historical preservation, I can start running the PSE pole attachment permit. So all the permitting will be queued up as soon as we get those final design sets back in about a month. And that'll take, a few months at minimum to get through all of that. So we're into late Q3, early Q4 before a shovel goes in the ground or we start hanging fiber on poles. And we'll have a period, a process where we'll have to go out for bid for material procurement. So that will take some time, get all the materials needed. We'll also have to go out to bid to find a qualified construction company to build this network for us. So you'll see all that updated here in the timeline. And then I just added some project funding. WISBO, we use acronyms a lot, so I might change this to spell it out, but it's the Washington State Broadband Office, which was the big portion of our grant. And then Whatcom County provided matching dollars. There was a requirement to provide matching dollars in order to secure the larger broadband office grant. And we're a very, very small utility. We don't have any extra dollars for any matching at all. So the county graciously offered to supply the matching dollars for this project. And then to help, additionally, there was some state funding in the state budget that was approved as well. And then there's a little bit of a history just on the project. We did a little bit of a report back in 2022, and I won't read all this to you right now, but just trying to document the progress of the project and make all of this open and publicly available to anyone who, if you're ever interested, come back here and I'll start putting up, updated, May 16th kind of a thing, so you know when it's been updated. But that's the idea, is that this has become the landing page, so anybody can come here and get up to speed on where we are. Unless I keep coming back and giving you updates like this is probably more efficient. So anyway, that's my report. That we're chugging right along. I know it doesn't look like a lot's happening right now, just because there's nothing in the field happening, but there's a lot going on in the background. That's kind of a bit of a calm before the storm.
Great. Thanks for the update, Andrew. One quick question, okay, if all goes well, all goes according to your plans, when do end users see anything available through this? Because it also has to be, I assume, after the build out, there also has to be an ISP sign up process, to actually provide the service.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. I imagine, sorry.
Or in parallel, the build out, sorry.
Yeah, I would imagine as it's being constructed, it'll be probably divided into phases, right? And we'll probably have some sort of color coordinated phase of, this phase in the northeast area is going to be constructed first, kind of a thing, or whatever it shakes out to be. Of course, I don't know that just yet, but yeah, that would be the idea, is as we're building, those customers are getting connected. Yes, and the idea, and so yeah, let me back up. We don't provide the end user services, so it's not like if the infrastructure is connected to your home, that you'd call Whatcom PUD. We don't provide the services. There would be an internet service provider who's really good at providing services to end users, right? We're pretty decent at building and maintaining critical infrastructure, so that's all we want to do, and we allow the private sector to ride over that infrastructure and provide the services to the end user. An outfit like Woodby or any other provider who wants to provide services over the network. So we did say that it would be what's called open access, which means that any internet service provider who wants to use the infrastructure can.
Oh, okay.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I want to
Alright.
thank Andrew. That was great.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks,
thanks both Andrew and Donna for all the hard work. I know this is, I know the community looks forward to having better broadband in Point Roberts, but nothing is easy.
Right.
No.
Nothing's easy in Point
No,
Roberts.
nothing's easy here.
Yeah,
We're up for the challenge. Thank you.
great. Ali, I'll hand it back to you, but
Well, I think it's still you, because our next is the abandoned cable infrastructure
yeah, I
follow-up.
was just gonna say, Elizabeth is next with that. Donna, Andrew, I think you're welcome to stay around, especially Andrew, you for this part, because we do have an issue with the cable infrastructure. Elizabeth?
Hello. So at the last meeting, PRCAC had asked for a volunteer to follow up on our sagging cable.
Victim, but yeah, sorry, volunteer, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. No, sorry.
Huh?
I
Can I?
said victim, also known as a volunteer, yes.
Yeah, well, anyway, so I thought, okay, I joined the committee, I should do something, so I stepped forward. So I want to first thank Bob Hillman because he was wonderful. He sent me a 3-page email giving me the background and the history. So for anybody who's tuning in, in the 80s, Delta Cable serviced Point Roberts, and they were on the point until 2019, and then they withdrew, and ownership was transferred over to Washington for-profit group, also known as Sky Communications, who have an office in North Vancouver. Anyway, I read all this. It was really overwhelming, and Bob spent 2 years following up, chasing people to no avail. So when I joined the committee, I got a letter from Satpol, saying welcome, and if I can do anything, let me know. So I phoned him up and I said, I'd like to come and meet with you. And I did. And I showed him Bob's letter, and I also walked along Marine Drive and took a whole bunch of photos of the cables that is sagging, and some are still in the ground. And he was horrified. He said, "Oh no, this is not good." And he said to me, "I agree with you, Elizabeth. You trying to get a hold of these people, you're going to go nowhere. It has to come from us." So he told me that he was going to write a letter to Andrew Hester. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Sester. And he's the franchise manager. So apparently when Delta Cable came to Point Roberts to put up poles, cables, they work through the franchise department. So he thought that this would be a good first step. So I haven't heard from Andrew, and Satpol said he's got a lot on his plate. He'll document it and get a hold of Andrew, who will copy me in on any communications. And they're going to try and work back to Delta Cable or Eastlink, which is the subsidiary, and see what's happening, because they have both benefited financially from being in Point Roberts, and now they've just abandoned everything and they're really responsible for it. And Satpol did say the people of Point Roberts are not responsible, for paying to get this taken down. We really have to go after these companies. So I left it with him, and I told him I will be phoning and being a flea in his ear to get the thing moving, because, it's not going to happen fast. Could take a couple of years. But I think it's a good first step. He's supporting the idea of getting the cables removed. So with his support and the county's support, and maybe with Andrew's support, we'll eventually see those ugly cables removed. That's it. That's my update.
That's her story.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So, Andrew, I'm going to ask you a question. In the areas in which the PUD maybe, are using the poles at that time, would the PUD take down that old infrastructure while you're putting up your new infrastructure?
Most likely not. If we don't own
Okay.
it, we don't touch it. We would
Okay.
make sure we have clearance on the pole to attach at the
Okay.
PSC standard clearance below the current attachment.
Touch it.
Okay.
Yeah, left, but nope.
I was hoping.
Yeah, I was too.
It's very tempting, but yeah, we've got to follow the rules.
Yeah.
You
Most of them
can't be
won't
going
touch
around. Am I talking over someone? Or maybe I'm getting
No.
feedback. Sorry.
I think it's just a
Okay.
mic in the room. Andrew, does the PUD have supervision over, I'm sure Point Roberts is not the only place in Whatcom County where there's abandoned infrastructure of this kind, maybe posing a hazard, for public safety or just even aesthetics. Who in the county is responsible for making sure these type of things get taken down by the appropriate owners, or if the owners are bankrupt or whatever, there's a way out of this?
Well, in Washington, it'd be regulated under the WUTC, is my understanding. And so, and Donna might have more insight on this also, but if it's, I'm not sure how Canadian companies work. If it's an American company, this Delta Cable, which it doesn't sound like it is, but if it were, I mean, you're regulated in the state of Washington as a cable telco broadband provider under the WUTC. So what you could do is file a complaint with the WUTC with, you know, here's all the cable hanging down off the poles, and it's, you know, creating havoc for our community, kind of a thing, and a safety issue.
WUTC is the Washington utility something, or I'm not
Yes.
familiar.
Utilities and Transportation.
Commission, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're doing the right thing by going to look at the franchise first as well, because if there are stipulations in the franchise for like abandonment or things like that, then that gives you that flexibility of removing them, then that would be a path. And we meet as what's called a steering committee, we being the PUD, the port, so the general manager of the PUD, the executive director of the port, and the executive of the county weekly. And so what I can do is I can bring this up at the next committee or steering steering committee meeting, and let them know that this group is trying to get a hold of Andrew and trying to get things moving forward on this
Thank you.
franchise. Yeah.
It would be great. Thank you very much.
I have another question then, Andrew. If the Delta Cable's pole rights with PSE maybe are expired or no longer exist, does PSE then, would PSE be able to give permission to have them removed? If they no longer have pole rights with PSE?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, they're on the poles. I'd be interested to know if they're still paying pole attachment
Right.
fees. Yeah.
If they've lost their pole rights because they're no longer paying the fees, at which point, if PSE said, go ahead, Whatcom County can take them down, then that would be PSE's call at that point, would it not? Just a question. I don't know.
Sounds like
PSC
ahead,
does
Donna.
not own all the poles on the point. Delta
But the ones
owns
they can-
many of their own poles.
Mm.
And it may just be abandoned property now up to the state, but who knows? I think you're gonna get lawyers involved regardless.
Oh, just what we want.
Check with the chief. Yes,
I
Bennett?
have a question. If they decide that they are completely abandoning the cable there, I'm wondering if this group that's doing the aerial fiber, if they could use the lashing wires that the cable is on and just and have them save money that way. Or is there, I know there are usually height requirements between cable and telephone and power, but I don't know what it is if they're putting fiber in there. Because a lot of times fiber is considered cable, you know, in the same way. So I'm wondering if the existing lashing wires between the poles would end up Andrew, I wonder if it would save you money by if you can take out the old cable and you repurpose the lashing for the fiber. Did you hear that, Andrew?
Yeah, I agree that would probably decrease costs, but without knowing if they're bankrupt or if it's still owned, there's still some unknowns before we can.
I'm just trying to think of a way to get rid of the cable and also reduce your costs at the same time.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
Guess we gotta dig a little deeper.
Yeah, well, there's gotta be a piece of paper somewhere that says, look, this cable's gotta come down and it's gonna say who it is and who's gonna get the bill. And then somebody can move forward with that.
Well, hopefully Set Paul and such can get a hold
Yeah,
of the
and that's
corporation. and we
that's
can
what
move
it is.
forward.
It's gonna be a formal statement or something from somebody of authority. And then says, here's the guy that's gonna pay the bill. And then anybody can move, the appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I understand. He doesn't wanna lay his hands on it, I wouldn't either.
No, totally understand. But yeah, if you can help us with that, Andrew, that'd be awesome.
That's exactly right.
Sure.
Andrew,
Yeah,
would you
we don't
like,
wanna, go ahead.
sorry, would you like Elizabeth to forward the documentation she mentioned to you? Is that something you need? in order to talk with the committee, the steering committee?
Bob's done a great job of looping me in on the Delta
Okay,
cable history as well.
Good.
So I think I have what I need, but if you want to forward it to me, that would be great, just to make sure we're all looking at the same document.
Okay,
Same
yeah,
piece.
because I gave it to Satpol and I also gave him 4 photos and the photos were great, like he was just horrified. Oh, yeah, okay, I can get your email from Prakash and I'll send you the
Yeah.
photos. Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. Andrew, Donna, again, thanks for coming, after hours, staying late.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks,
for having me.
Andrew. Thanks, Donna, again, both of you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, it sounds to me like you would be a really great person to invite Satpal over here to have a guided tour of Point Roberts, and we could point out all of these kinds of
Well, he's actually
horrible
in June.
sites.
He told me he'll be on the point in June, but he couldn't give me a date. So I told him to keep me posted. And I also told him to be prepared that I will be, constantly nudging him into action.
Good. That's great.
Okay, well, he's supposed to
Yes.
be here in June, so yeah, we can take him of a personal tour of all that sagging cables.
I have a few sites myself that I would like for him to see.
Okay, and again, thank you, Bob, for all your work before, and I'm sorry it didn't work out for your venture.
You had a question, Lee?
Yeah, why is Paul coming in June? Does anybody know?
I don't know.
He just said it was on his calendar that he visits the point and he was coming in June. And he said his PA is organizing it all. So he was busy. I mean, I said what I had to and I left. So
I'll
but
check with Jed
currently
and
he's
see.
here in June, so we'll see him then.
I'll check with Jed. Okay, so our next is Whatcom Transportation Authority Circle of Care Memorandum of Understanding and Timing, and now.
We are just now getting the final touches on the insurance. The insurance has to be in place before we pick the vehicle up, and that's been a very interesting and circuitous route. We'll be interviewing, I have a few applicants for driver and dispatcher. Will be doing those interviews next week. I'll just announce here that we're still looking, we're taking applications for drivers and a dispatcher. And they will be full-on employees at $25 an hour. And we hope to have the whole program, sort of depending on how quickly we can get people hired and trained, hope to get the program started sometime in June.
Good.
Okay, next we have, our drainage, stormwater. Only update we have on that is that Brian and myself will be meeting with Eric from Public Works on June 6th to get the preliminary update and hopefully start planning community outreach in July and August. Timing wise for the most people to be available. As far as the TBD fund, I'm actually, that we're gonna talk about at our next meeting, make sure it's on the agenda when Public Works Director Elizabeth Cosa is going to be joining us along with Council Member at Large John Scanlon. Hopefully he will have some more information as to how we're able to use those funds. And they're double checking to see if we need to do another ballot measure because of the change of the wording in the RCW, or if it's considered fine.
What's Elizabeth's last name?
Oh, I'll send it to you later.
Okay, send it to me later. Thanks. It's okay.
Sorry, I got a lot of people's names in my phone right
I
now.
was just gonna say, I saw you fooling around there.
Yeah. So next we have, so let's try to cancel opinion. So that'll be on the agenda next month when we have them here. PRCAC interested party email list, library of correspondence opportunity. That is Jared. You want to unmute yourself and talk about it?
I don't really have any updates.
Don't have any what?
Oh, no update. Okay. That's fine. We can talk about that next month. We also have update from Gina Stark about our SERB application for the economic development strategy. She actually, she submitted it and now has been invited by SERB to personally present it to the SERB board in July.
In July, okay.
So I had a great conversation with her yesterday, day before. She's excited about it. We have matching funds from the county. So she will let me know if she needs members from the community to Zoom in, or I said I'll go to Olympia with her for that meeting with the SERB board to put whatever best foot forward. So she's on a, I can't remember what she said she was doing at the end of this week. So she's going to reach out to me next week. And we're going to finalize if she needs people from the point, business owners, some of us,
Yeah,
whether it be by Zoom or in Olympia for that presentation to the SERB board.
what was the date again, Ali, for this one?
She didn't give me the exact date. I just know it's in July. She said she was going to get a hold of me and let me know all of the details next week.
Okay,
Because she
great.
had to go to a conference.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you're on this. This could be so strategic for Point Roberts. So I think anything that we can do and the community can do to help make the plan come
Well,
together.
I'm excited. The fact that she submitted the application and has been invited to personally present it to the SERB board.
Which is
I
which
think
is-
that's great.
Yeah.
She got great feedback from them that when she sent it in, that yes, this is the community that needs this.
Yeah.
So
Great.
Ally, I'm sure that the Circle of Care Steering Committee for the Sailors Sea House would very much like to be on that Zoom call. So if you want to make a note of that, or I'll call Gina myself and
just
let
pop
her
me an
know.
email because I'm starting a list for her.
Sure.
People, businesses and such. Because we don't want to make it too many people, but we want to make sure that we're strategic at the same time. And then I'm gonna let Gina pick from her list, of how she wants to,
So
how
that's
she
a
wants to.
public meeting, right? Ali? Like, I mean, if
I would think
Four of
so.
Oh, yeah,
I would
we
think so.
wouldn't
I
be
would think it would be a live
violating-
stream meeting.
that's.
we wouldn't be violating like Public Meetings Act or something if 4 of us showed up for that.
No,
Yeah.
no, I can't see.
We can
Well,
always
because it,
adjourn to that meeting.
It depends on how you could designate people who are, representing the PRCAC. And if somebody wants to go in and represent
Represent.
themselves as an individual,
From Point Roberts.
right? That's totally separate,
Yeah.
right? As long as you don't have
As-
4 people representing the PRCAC, right? It would be best if there was only 3 of us,
Yeah,
so that we don't have any mistaken quorum issues.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at least that's my opinion. I like to try and stay away from
No, that's
any
right.
quorum issues,
yep.
as possible. But like I said, I think it's great news. And I will give everybody an update that the Point Roberts Parks made it to we call it the second round for our $580,000 grant funding that we've applied for. So
Yep,
which would be great for the community for outdoor recreation. So myself and Melanie are working on answering all the questions for the second part of the grant. So
that was good news.
well, good things are seeming to start to slowly roll in for our community
Yeah,
with grant funding, I think.
Sorry, this is the boat ramp that we're talking about, or
No,
Is that
this is
different?
the Point Roberts Parks requested $580,000 in grant funding to build outdoor recreational courts up at Bakersfield
yeah,
to create more
Okay,
outdoor
all right.
recreational opportunities. It's again, the grant funding that only comes around every 2 years.
yep,
It comes around every 2 to 5 years. And it's a zero match grant, which is amazing. That's why it doesn't come around very often. So I think it would be, you know, all these positive things for Point Roberts slowly coming up. And what other update did you have? Oh, the Whatcom County.
Oh, that's right. The 2025 comprehensive plan update for the public participation plan, easy for me to say, and population and growth projections made it to the planning commission on May 7th. I sat through that because I don't have a life. But anyway, basically it came to them as a package from their consultant. They essentially recommended it for approval and on to council. We are in it, but we are in it as rural because that's how they see us. And so we're there, but we're not broken out by an individual community. At this point, this is just informational. This doesn't affect anything. What we need to see, I believe, is the comprehensive plan update itself. All of this did was set the boundary of where it's going to be reviewed and how much they're going to reach out to the public and the numbers that they are going to use for population and growth projections, including economic at this point. Basically, it's just a heads up, I guess.
Would it hurt to reach out and ask them to actually designate us properly as a LAMRID?
It would not hurt. We can do that, certainly.
Would you mind doing that? Because
No.
we're not urban, we're not rural, we're a LAMRID, and we've been designated that by the state of Washington since the 90s.
Right.
The late 90s, and it's a very distinct, it doesn't fall in either category. It's a distinct set itself, and I think they need to make sure that
they understand that.
we're listed appropriately for
Right.
them to do their job.
I understand. Yeah, okay. I mean, kind of like a drainage plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like that.
because there's not that many in the state, so
Got it.
I get it that we get missed under that designation.
Understand, yes.
So we're under new business. Strategy for response to West Shore Terminal's coal dust pollution.
That's,
I brought that up.
Ben brought that up
Better
last.
brought that up.
And it's because their monitors have not, I don't think they're out there working right now. They say they're supposed to activate them in the springtime and turn them off in the fall. It would be nice if they would let Point Roberts know exactly when they do turn them on, the sensors on and turn them off. Because once we get the winds picked up, the clouds of coal dust just have been horrendous. And it would also be nice if the community could get a phone number to call over there and say, hey, you need to turn on your misters. Especially if they're not doing the monitoring on the system. So I don't know if,
So interestingly enough, the engineering firm that was hired to do all of that at the coal port was Fleur Daniel Wright, engineers out of Vancouver. The person who actually went to the Delta Coal Port to check it all out was my father, because he's a metallurgy engineer specializing in coal. I can try and reach out to see if any of the gentlemen that were there with my dad are still there and see if they can help us out in any way. get contacts and such, because they have all of the pro forma that my dad drew up of when it's supposed to happen, at what levels, because there's sensors and everything, and see if maybe Fleur Daniel Wright can help us out a little bit.
I don't think they actually have the sensors operational, even though they're supposed to be right now. Which causes problems right then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the misters are supposed to go off. There was a sensor, and then when how my father explained this back to me a long time ago, I still lived at home, was that when the coal level reached a certain point, the misters automatically went on. There was a sensor that measured the dust in the air, and when they hit a certain level, the misters just automatically turned on.
that's not happening. You can tell it's not happening over there because of the amount of coal that's coming up in the air and being spread out. Anyone who was over there would be able to see it's like a black cloud just drifting over the straits towards us.
I'll see what I can dig up, and I'll actually get a hold of, I know Pat's on the meeting, I'll get a hold of Pat, because this has come up, I know, multiple times over different years, and I know he's reported on the coal dust. It might have been a while ago, but see what he has in his archives.
You saw the pictures.
Yeah, for contacts and stuff like that, and maybe Pat can jiggle their chain a little bit as a journalist of,
Yeah.
you need to be doing this. But yeah, I'll talk to Pat Grubb, because he's been around here forever, and I'm sure he's written multiple stories about this. And I'll see if I can get a hold of Fleur Daniel Wright and see if any of the guys that worked with my father are still there.
Yeah, and as an individual, I don't think they
Right.
paid attention to that, so.
Okay, next is abandoned household goods and refuse on or near the right of way. So I know this is horrible. People do this. I know people put things out, they put it for free. And it's gone all over Nextdoor. It's gone all over, Facebook and stuff. If nobody comes and picks up your free stuff after a couple of days, please take it to the dump. I think as a community, we need to, if you see somebody doing that, I actually stopped the other day. Somebody was putting a shower out on the corner. I took a picture, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm taking a picture of you in your shower, and if it's still here in 3 days, I'm letting the sheriff know." Because you can't do that.
No, you can't do that.
Guess what? It went back in the back of a pickup truck. He didn't even live at the address where he was putting it.
I'm not.
But know that Public Works is really good if you fill out the form for Public Works and let them know where something is and abandoned. They will come get it and take it to the dump on a Thursday when they have the crew here. But remember, that does come out of our taxes, so,
You could see there's some persistence with, not so much the people leave free stuff, because you see that, but items that are just left, dumped.
well, if someone sticks a washer and dryer out on the side of the road, if nobody's come and got it in 3 days or 4 days,
It's not even
it's
an
still
effort.
there a month and a half later.
There's no effort to put a
That's-
sign
yeah.
on it or anything, because that's what the intent is. The intent wasn't to provide us something free. The intent, just like I've seen a little more preponderance of litter
Yeah,
The one thing,
especially,
if they are using the online form, if they can be very specific about exactly where it is, and also
Mhm.
take a digital picture and insert it onto
Right.
it. It helps them out. I know from talking with them, it
Mhm.
really helps them out when they're coming around to.
yeah, when I've done
Do any
it,
type of.
I take a picture with my phone, because then I fill the form out on my phone so that I can upload it. And I take a picture of where it is, and then I take a picture of the cross street sign.
We've had a couple of street signs that have been knocked down and they come right out to fix.
Oh, yeah, that,
They do that.
especially a stop sign or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. My thing is, I'm seeing more of that, but, more of the items being left, but also litter. And I'm seeing more litter. And it's the kind of litter that doesn't deteriorate. It's not like it's paper, like you think of paper or something tossed out of a window. It's beer cans, it's Coke cans, and it's plastic.
Well, I think part of the reason is, I don't know why people don't just take it with them. But, you know, they're on a walk or whatever, and they're used to places like Vancouver and stuff that when you're walking down a road, there's random spots that there's trash cans.
Right,
And such, and our community doesn't have that,
right.
and it's people being bad.
Yeah, I know, and we recently talked about Parks and Rec where we're putting a couple more trash cans
You know, at
in conspicuous
Bakersfield,
places like
but
that where people, you know, there's traffic. But I guess my general comment, seeing some of the litter, especially in the along Tyee, you know,
yeah, and again, it's people walking up and down
or
mainly, and there's,
leaving town or something like that.
there's no available trash cans,
Yep.
you know, and the only solution to that is the sheriff ticketing people for littering.
Okay.
Or us finding a way to put
A couple of trash cans.
a couple
somewhere
of trash
in
cans
conspicuous
somewhere.
Places, yeah.
But then again, it comes down to, well, then who pays for those trash cans?
Well.
To be empty, and
Who empties?
when?
Who empties them?
Who empties them?
Yeah,
Who's
I
paying
got
for
it.
them to get emptied? Like, so
Yeah.
that gets into a whole nother conversation. Elizabeth, you have your hand raised?
Yes, so I'm just putting this out. Some communities have signs that say no dumping illegal. Is that something the point would entertain or
We
not?
have one right when you come into Point Roberts,
I've never
and
seen
it
it.
even says a fine for littering,
And there's, and it actually, and there also
right when you
is-
come through the border.
right when you come through the border, there's also a
Oh,
note that says,
okay.
I think you get fined.
I'll
Right,
have,
this is-
I've never seen it, guys, but I was just wondering, like maybe on Gulf, you know, like where there's a
To be
lot.
honest, that's the only sign I've ever seen, is the one right when you come into Point Roberts.
Okay, when you come in, where is it? On the right-hand side? Is it before the old water board building or after? I've
I
never
think
seen,
it's right before.
I'll have to look. Well, what about putting more signs up? Is that doable or not?
That would be a request to Whatcom County Public Works. If that's something we wanted.
What do you think as the board? Is it worthwhile pursuing or?
So that would have to be put on the agenda for next month.
Okay,
Before that would be something that we could vote on, because it actually has to be an agenda item for it to be an action item or something like that, but we can put that on the agenda for next month.
Sure.
thank
Just so
you.
that way people know and they can be part of the conversation.
Yep.
Okay.
Lee?
Yeah, I was just going to request something from PRAC to Public Works because I know individuals have called. I have a particular right of way where a neighbor's been dumping all his trees stuff, green stuff, tires, fence posts, everything. And the county just has done nothing. Public Works has done nothing. Nobody has done anything. They asked him to move the stuff and he said he would and he didn't. So I don't know what else to do. What I often see here on the point is a lack of enforcement all the way around. If PRAC possibly could contact and send a letter to Public Works and, you know, to the effect that we mean business or something, I don't know. It's just so frustrating. Thank you.
Anel?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Lee and relative to other more signs. I wonder if there's really anybody who visits Point Roberts who thinks that it's okay to do what they're doing. So therefore, I don't really think that more signs is going to make a difference. It'll just mean more signs on the side of the roads.
Yep. Yep.
And certainly if there's no enforcement, then why would anybody bother other than people who just do the right thing? But it brings something else to add to the conversation for next month. A number of people have said to me directly, and I've seen a couple of notes on Nextdoor now about all of the derelict properties. And I wonder if that's something that we want to have a conversation about. It's an ongoing, I've been here going on 14 years now, and it's been going on at least that long, about derelict properties, and do we want, to make an issue with the county about that? If I were a property owner, adjacent to or across the street from, one of these derelict properties, and its dereliction was affecting my property value, I would be pretty upset. So I just wonder if it's something that we want to take on board.
So when it comes to derelict properties, just because I've had to deal with this before.
Yeah.
Unless it is a fire or a health hazard, there's absolutely nothing Whatcom County can do. If it is a health hazard, because it's rat infested and all of that kind of thing, the health department can get involved and have something done. If it is a fire hazard or a life and safety hazard, which means there's broken windows or things like that, outdoor fridges and things like that that are out there where a child could get locked in or somebody could, lose their life, that then falls under the fire marshal and he can get involved. It is very, very difficult.
Well,
So,
it exists that way because Whatcom County hasn't passed any ordinances or any laws about derelict properties. In other counties around the country, or cities, there are laws about mowing your yard before the grass gets to be knee-high, removal of weeds, not allowing trash to
that's
build up.
usually more HOAs, but yeah. But
Well,
yeah, it's.
I can say that every community that I've ever lived in, and again, I'm not necessarily advocating this, but I do think we need to have the conversation. Anyway, there are ways of handling it that other communities do, and for one reason or another, it seems that Whatcom County has just chosen not to address the issue. And I'm not really sure that if you were to go to another 5 square miles of Whatcom County, and then identify the derelict properties in that 5 square miles, how we would compare. I don't know. My sense is that there are more derelict properties in Point Roberts in 5 square miles than there are. No. Okay.
So one of the houses was here in Point Roberts. I talked to Fire Marshal Will about it. He's like, there's nothing I can do because it doesn't meet the parameters. And he said, to be honest with you, yes, they look bad, but it's nothing compared to the rest of Whatcom County and how bad they are in certain areas. So yeah, because Fire Marshal Will this is prior to 2019, came to look at a house with me that I thought for sure was going to hit his radar. And he's like, oh, this is nothing compared to what we have in the county. So, which is sad to say.
It's sad to say, but I agree with what Anel is saying, is that there's 2 properties I know of. I drive by, if I was a fire marshal, I'd look at them and say, you have to clean that up. It's,
Yeah.
I don't know to what degree they apply a rule. What is the rule? It's like, how bad does it have to get? And I got the thing about how the rest of Whatcom County may be worse, but that's not an excuse that I look at and say, I look at 2 houses. I know 3 houses right now I could take you to right now that it would be unacceptable in Whatcom County. And then I also look at enforcement at a county, at a city level, or whatever, unincorporated, whatever the hell you want to call it. You couldn't pull this crap in Linden. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Okay? You couldn't pull this crap in Linden. And that's Whatcom County, but somebody would say, hey, what are you doing? And I know other parts of Billingham and also Ferndale where you couldn't pull this nonsense.
it's something we can start to
Yeah, you know,
discuss,
and-
it's just.
And it transcends Whatcom County, it's even at a local where neighbors would say, you clean it up and you clean it up now. Not that there would be a lynching, but at the end of the day, they just wouldn't put up with it.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
A lot of times when they're derelict properties, the people at that point in time stop paying their taxes on the property.
Well, I was gonna say. you
And
can always
that
look
would, are there, I'm wondering, are there properties here on the point that are like that? That where they're not paying their taxes and the county is still not going after them?
The county owns those
They,
properties.
they may not own them, they may not have taken them over yet.
It had-
And that's what I'm wondering if they're, if those, if, some of those properties are the ones that could be, actually addressed. If
There
they're
was
not-
2 properties on the auction list last year per Point Roberts, only 2 that were there 3 years behind in property taxes.
So all the,
All the other ones,
they're paying up.
they are, well, they're not 3 years and going to auction.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter where you are in Whatcom County, if you're 3 years past, you go up for auction.
Yeah,
So, and when I looked at the auction last year in November, cause I look, there was only 2.
So you,
And they were both actually bare properties.
actually, people could, if they want to check, they can actually check online to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look to see
They can look
if
to see if they're behind on their.
they're
taxes.
behind on their taxes.
Yeah, and when that property will come up for auction.
Yeah.
If they don't pay them.
Yes, it's always in November, October, November is when the list goes out and then the auction happens.
Well,
Is that a new hand, Elizabeth? I can't hear you, you muted.
Yes, it's a new question, but I think Anel was before me.
it. So I guess my point is that there's the derelict properties and the vacant properties. The vacant properties are an issue because of our housing situation. So I don't know that there are any current solutions on the books with Whatcom County, but we all need to be talking about getting people in houses that are vacant and getting derelict properties cleaned up for the benefit of everybody. That's all I have to say about that.
Elizabeth?
Okay, so I'm changing gear here. I remember a few meetings back, we were going to have the sheriff attend one of the meetings, Sheriff Lynch, I think it was. And
yes.
he didn't come, and I'm wondering maybe he can come to a meeting.
That was my bad. I forgot to follow up with him to come for that meeting.
Okay, well, maybe we can reschedule him and we can talk about enforcement of things like dumping and whatever else. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, I can try and find him and get that rescheduled, cause I did not do that, get him rescheduled, cause he had to go for special training and couldn't make the one meeting. Okay, so back to the agenda. We are at the second public comment. Does anybody have something that they would like to discuss, like us to discuss? Or anything else? Bob Hillman?
Yeah, I just wanted to clear up something. I wasn't sure whether it was Anel or Elizabeth that said it, that said, I'm sorry your broadband didn't work out. And I guess I'd paraphrase Mark Twain. The reports of my death are
Greatly exaggerated.
greatly exaggerated. And so I'll extend that to PointNet. We're reorganized and we will surface in midsummer, and we have a 100% wireless solution, which will beat everybody to the draw. And that's all I have to say.
Good for you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Looking forward to hearing about it next month.
Thanks, Bob.
Competition's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, isn't it?
There you go. Anyone else? Lee?
No,
Oh,
I was,
that's-
I was
That's a clap,
applauding.
not a
the-
hand. I just realized that's a clapping hand, not a raised hand. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, seeing none, I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Thank-
next month.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
And good to have you back, Kelly.
Yeah. So Al,